Former Attorney General Gavin Nicholas, thank you very much. I know for a couple of weeks we have been trying to get you on, so I'm really thankful that you took the time. I'm not sure how long you were logged on, if you were hearing in the back, but I did speak about political leaders who are fearful of the media. That is something that I personally kind of, it's a red flag. So I'm always happy when we can have political leaders, we can have those who've placed themselves up for public service, face the fire. Hopefully it's friendly fire today. So thank you very much.
Well, good afternoon, Marsha. It's definitely nice to be with you. I am certainly not somebody who is afraid of facing the media. It's unfortunate that our schedules weren't able to line up over the last 2 weeks. But as I said, once I got enough notice, I was able to put you in and not just pencil you in, but pen you in to ensure that I could be here this afternoon.
Awesome. And I'm so happy to have you. My first experience, like face to face with you, would have actually been during the local government elections. I remember you pulled me aside and you gave me some advice. And immediately, I it's like the respect levels went from here to here. I only known you from afar, and I felt like, oh, this is a real statesman. And that's not something, unfortunately, I see often on the ground in politics. Someone who is a real statesman, friendly, dignified, articulate. So I don't know if I told you that then, but I'll tell it to you live.
That is very kind of you.
So I was happy that you were able to pen me in. We saw, let me get a little bit serious now. I saw on the news on Monday that there was an 11-year-old, a Newtown Boys, so standard force pupil, and he was robbed. They threw him onto the floor, two men, and they took $27 from his pocket. I felt to me, one, this is my feeling, that can't be gang. That's not grand larceny. It sounds like some version of desperation to be able to rob an 11-year-old boy, push him to the floor, dip into his pocket, and take $27. Gary would have spoken a little bit about his take on unlimited state. Well, he said there's no limited state of emergency. On any state of emergency, the effect in the end, actually, the economy, everything will then, in the end, have a negative impact on crime because you're not solving the root causes. What are your thoughts on our crime situation? I don't know if you heard of the robbery with the 11-year-old. As I said, I feel as though that sounds sort of like a desperate crime, a crime of someone who is desperate to eat or something. I don't know.
I must say, I haven't heard of that particular crime. I have been bombarded with so many different crimes. It's really not a pleasant experience to have to read the newspapers, to go on Facebook, to listen to the blogs or anything like that, as far as the crime situation is concerned in Trinidad and Tobago. And I've heard Gary has a particular experience, a particular qualification. He has been through the military, he's been a Minister of National Security, he's been a Commissioner of Police. And he obviously has a take on how to deal with crime from that level. I have been looking at how other countries have dealt with crime because as a lawyer, I guess I have grown accustomed to being reliant on precedent. So you look for precedent that works and that is applicable to a particular situation. And for me, I have looked around the world to see the countries that have low crime rates, the countries that have had high crime rates but have dealt with it and have now reduced their crime rates, and try to learn from their example. In particular, for me, I recently looked at the situation in Scotland. And it's very interesting because Scotland has a population of 5.5 million people. And a few years ago, Scotland was considered to be the most dangerous place in the UK. and now it is considered to be the safest place in the UK. A little bit of the statistics will tell you that in a population of 5.5 million people, they had 52 murders in 2022-2023. That is down from their high of 109 murders 20 years ago. So they have seen a 52% drop in crime from 20 years ago. And 10 years ago, the murder rate was 62. They had 62 homicides. So a 16% drop over the last 10 years. So unlike Trinidad and Tobago, where you are seeing a constant increase in the murder rate, in the homicide rate, you have seen a drastic fall of some 50% over the last 20 years. Now, interestingly, and this to me is extremely impressive, since 2013 to now, they have had 605 homicides, and they have solved every single one. Every single one. Now, if I were in the police service, if I were the present Minister of National Security, instead of jollying all over the place and talking a bunch of nonsense and wasting people's time, I would be in Scotland trying to find out what it is they did to reduce homicides, gang violence, crime in general, to ensure that the crime came down and people felt safer. Now, I've looked at it and I've looked at the number of different initiatives that they have actually implemented. I mean, they have had organizations that deal specifically with things like human trafficking, serious organized crime, violence against women, violence and knife crime, because they don't really have gun crime the way we have gun crime. They have knife crime. But of course, it's still knife crime that led to homicides, hate crime, sharing intimate videos, cybercrime, sexual offenses, etc. But they have also then gone a little deeper, and they have gone into how you deal with poverty and inequality as an aspect of the causes of crime. Because you see, it's one thing to deal with crime after the fact. It is one thing you pray and you put up walls and you put security cameras and electric fences and all of those things. But those are really just keeping the criminals at bay as opposed to removing criminal thinking and the causes that lead to criminal behavior, that lead to that 11-year-old being thrown on the ground and his $27 being taken from him. They have gone to try to figure out what exactly are these causes. So they have dealt specifically with child poverty. They have a plan to eradicate child poverty from Scotland. So there is supposed to be no child subject to poverty. There is no child that shouldn't have a meal when the day comes. They should, and they've ramped up their welfare programs so that you deal with a fair distribution of welfare and that sort. So essentially, their national security minister recognized his role, which is to protect the citizens of Scotland, unlike our national security minister, who doesn't seem to know his role. And that is, I mean, people may laugh at that, people may scoff at that, but the reality is, if you have a national security minister who doesn't understand his role is to ensure the safety and protection of citizens, then he would not be on a Thursday afternoon sitting down contemplating ways in which to make the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago safer, because that is not his role. So the first thing we have to do is to get a national security minister who understands what his role is. get a prime minister who understands what his role is. Because again, the prime minister has abdicated his role as the head of the National Security Council and is blaming others for the crime situation. So if you have those two people who do not understand their role is to protect the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago and to come up with policies and programs to protect the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, not just by having more boots on the ground, etc., but by actually targeting the causes of crime in Trinidad and Tobago, then we are going nowhere. So I want to first start by saying that what we first need is a recognition that somebody needs to be in the job who is interested and understands that we need to protect the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and we don't have that now.
As political leader, my take on it, once you are the political leader of a party, of a political party, it means that you are prepared to lead the country. Yes?
Well, you should be.
Right. So, political leader, what is the role for the MND in 2025? We know in the local government election, you would have formed an accommodation, the NTA, the MND, and the UNC. How did that experience work out? You would have left, I guess there are tons of different questions. So I could break it up or I could just kind of ask all and then you could take a shot at it.
Sure.
You were part of the People's Partnership. You didn't stay with the UNC. Well, I think nobody in the partnership stayed, but you moved on from being in the UNC to, your own political party. What is the future of MND? What can we see in 2025?
Okay. First of all, the MND existed before 2010 partnership.
Okay.
So we actually came on board with the UNC when Kamala Persad-Bissessar won the leadership election. Because once the leadership election was announced, we said we supported her, and we said that we would join with her if she won. And so said, so done. So I behaved like a member of the UNC during the partnership. And that is why I wasn't one of those people who stayed out and acted as prime minister because I was a leader of a party as part of the partnership. I just went in and did work for the people. Post 2015, I took a little stand back with the MND and looked at things. But the reality is that we still supported the agenda of the UNC as far as it related to keeping the PNM in check and ensuring that we could bring good governance to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. In the last local election, where we formed the accommodation and we all worked together, I worked for UNC candidates, for NTA candidates. It didn't matter because I was working for Diego Martin to be improved. At the end of the local government election, having actually spoken with the people across Diego Martin and others, and looking at the results, it was then clear to me, and this might be an unpopular position, but it was then clear to me that really and truly there were only two political parties that people recognized in Trinidad. I can't say Tobago, in Trinidad, and that is the PNM and the UNC. As much as I would like to say that the MND could go it alone, and probably if I got some kind of massive lotto win with $100 million and I could put all the infrastructure in place and get the people on board, perhaps that might be possible. But in the present circumstances, I believe that there are only two political parties that will be of significance in the 2025 election. It isn't to say that There are not good people with good ideas who are parts of smaller parties. In fact, there are. And I always have great respect for people who stand up against the odds and try to make a change. But because of my plenty experience now, I can safely say that it is going to be a PNM-UNC race. And because of that, the leader of the UNC, the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bissessar, will decide whether PNM goes back in power or Trinidad and Tobago moves on, because it is totally in her hands. As leader of the UNC, as leader of the opposition, she has the power to make that happen or destroy it.
How so?
Very candid.
How so?
The people of Trinidad and Tobago, they despise the PNM. They despise the PNM for good reason. One, the PNM have destroyed the economy with an extremely arrogant Minister of Finance at the helm. They have depended, they put all their eggs in the energy basket, again, not diversifying the economy. And we live in the young hope of something happening 4 years down the road with oil and gas to revive the economy. We have become extremely unsafe as a nation because of what I've spoken about a little while ago. Young people are not seeing any hope for progress in Trinidad and Tobago. Young qualified people are finding it very difficult to come back to Trinidad and Tobago, and many are leaving. Many business people have left Trinidad and Tobago, and once you have that brain drain and that economic drain, you are not going to improve Trinidad and Tobago's standing. And you cannot keep taxing Trinidad and Tobagonians to revive the economy. That is the dumbest economic plan that you could possibly have. It is just stupid. And I can't understand how more people haven't actually stood up and rebelled against this nonsense. You are also taking the people of Trinidad and Tobago for granted with basically stagnant salaries, increase, almost a double increase in food prices, double increase in petrol prices. Services are horrible. And even with the payment of the property tax, which is an absolute fiasco, you have the valuation system for the property tax has been rubbish. There are so many people who are querying it. There are people who have had two sets of valuations for the same property, all sorts of nonsense. And to top it off, Marsha, the same finance minister who talks about a cashless economy, who want to go in that direction, does not put in place a platform for citizens to safely, conveniently, and efficiently pay their tax online. Instead, you have to waste a whole heap of man hours. You have to inconvenience yourself. You have to either stand in sun or rain to pay the tax. I mean, it is foolish on so many levels. It is uncaring. It is arrogance personified. And then you are threatening people, of course, with all sorts of sanctions if they don't make the payment on time. So I
I
come
also
back.
heard there were some days the links machine, you couldn't pay by link, so you needed to have cash.
Yes. Imagine you are forcing people to walk the road in this crime-ridden environment with cash to go and pay property tax, lining up in hot sun or rain to do it for hours. It is just insane. So I come back to the role of Kamala Persad-Bissessar as leader of the UNC, as leader of the opposition. And having just articulated the reasons why people don't want the PNM, are fed up with the PNM, are disgusted with the PNM. You need to provide an alternative to the PNM that people can now look and say, you have this worthless crop and we have this progressive crop. We know for sure who we could support. Now, to be fair, I have listened to her and she has been able to articulate some very good manifesto type policies that I believe can actually help Trinidad and Tobago and the people of Trinidad and Tobago move forward. I may not agree with everything she says, but she has certainly thought through and they've done a lot of work in preparing a manifesto document that I believe can transform Trinidad and Tobago. And as such, she needs to get as many people on board as possible. She needs to get a team that the people could be confident with, or confident in, and ensure that we are well placed to challenge the PNM in 2025. Anything else, we are putting the PNM back in power for another 5 years, and God help us all.
Do you believe she's doing that right now? Do you believe she's putting a team in place? What does it look like to you? Let's be frank.
Well, from here, I in Pity Valley, where I am, I can't see it, unfortunately.
And
it is not to say that work isn't probably being done, but I cannot see it from here at this time.
We just had 5 MPs. I mean, after the natx election, the senators spoke, DPL John spoke, Wade Mark spoke, and said, there'll be healing after natx. After natx, what you see are MPs who use their constitutional right, persons who would have challenged not even leadership, because leadership was not up for grabs. They've been moved, which of course we know when you move down on the bench and whatever, we know what that sort of signals. There is no healing. We've seen an alderman leave, cross the floor, go on to PNM. Well, of course, I've spoken out. I've said I will not be representing. I did not file nomination under the present version of the UNC. And I hear you when you speak about only 2 parties, but I would tell you that local election, the first day, I could tell you from general election 2020, because I went as a candidate in Diego Martin West, and I heard non-stop, Marsha, like Baka vote for UNC. So it's surprising to hear a fellow Valley man say there's only 2 parties, because if it's one place, I think that a third party stands a chance in this country are the 3 Diego Martins.
Remember, I contested Diego Martin Central, and in fact, I put up 3 candidates for the MND. Of course, it was on an absolute shoestring budget because I didn't get money from anybody. I didn't go soliciting money or anything like that. It was an absolute shoestring budget. But we had 3 candidates, and we did get people coming out by their hundreds and supporting us. But of course, they all said, listen, we will support you on principle because we like your policies. We know that you're important to the process, but we know you can't win. 1, because you don't have the resources to reach the people. But 2, you're only putting up 3 candidates, and therefore you will have to form an alliance with somebody at the end. So you're not going to be on your own. Of course, they didn't understand that the power of 3 candidates deciding who becomes the government actually holds a lot of power and can get a lot of things done for them. But I think until such time that the population is mature enough Because you see, we have a bad habit.
I was going to ask you what year was that you went up in Diego Martin Central? Because I know you were also part
That
of.
was last general election. Last
Okay,
general election, I had three candidates
oh,
for,
that was 2020.
yeah,
Okay,
and the local election prior, I also put candidates
right.
um, for
So that would have
MND.
been in the social media era. Because
Yes,
I mean, because I want to say that in 2007, I mean, the COP got some 20%. I think it was 22%, if you know, to be exact. Um, I mean, they didn't win a seat. Of course, we weren't going to proportional representation and all of that, right? But I mean, again, I go back to Diego Martin. Keith Rowley, 29,000 votes available, and he, on his best year, got fourteen
yes.
thousand, right? He, I don't think he will get 7,000 this round if he gets that much. Yeah,
No,
anybody,
I would like to think, honestly, that again, if I had a really nice budget,
but social media, I think social media
social media is
also,
not enough.
you don't think?
It's not enough because not enough people are on social media, and Trinidad politics requires face-to-face contact. It requires that dynamism of interaction, which I believe in. I love
No,
that
I
kind of
agree. I
politics.
do
I
agree.
love
But I mean,
that
but just like
retail
you,
politics.
yeah, but just like you, first of all, I think it's near impossible to walk and meet touch 29,000 persons. I have put together a shoestring budget because I that's what Digger Martin gets anyway. Even if you have a big budget, that's what
Yes.
Digger Martin gets. Um, so maybe I'm just
Now
still
the point is this
young
too.
and naive. Maybe.
If you have a third party, like say the MND did what the NTA did at general election, where you had a one-on-one fight, we would have done a hell of a lot better because then people would say, okay, we can win with this because it's a one-on-one. It's not a split. The minute you split it,
Right.
the minute you have the MND and the UNC going up against each other and the PNM,
Split.
the people will get confused, the people will get frustrated, the people will stay home, the people will rightly say stoops.
But then, I mean, and I understand what you're saying, but I did not experience that on the ground. I can send you voice messages where persons called on the morning, and all I could do, because I can't canvass for votes, I can't campaign, all I could say is, okay, they got there, they saw UNC, and they were upset. They said, but
Yes.
Marsha, I thought you were NTA. I said, no, I'm UNC. But you walked with Gary. I hear Gary. Yes, but I'm UNC.
Yes.
I can't vote for UNC. I
Yeah,
put
but you have that,
okay.
but you also have, again, just those would be a small proportion of the numbers.
You think so?
Because, yeah, because when I walked the Martin Northeast Central and well, mostly the Martin Northeast and Central, there are people who would say, yeah, we don't want the UNC. But at the end of the day, the UNC got more votes than everybody else.
Yeah. Well, Northeast,
Um,
I think Northeast has a good chance with in UNC.
Northeast, with one candidate against the PNM, and Central with one candidate against the PNM, and even West with one candidate against the PNM, whether it is under UNC, an MND, an NTA banner, but one candidate with the knowledge that we are all part of one group, stands a very good chance. But the minute you split it,
Right. Well, we had PEP splits for local government.
yeah, the
Yeah.
minute you split it, that's the end of the thing. So what we also need are mature politicians or people in politics, because I don't consider myself a politician. I am just somebody who happened to be in politics, who was drafted into politics at a very, very early age. And I like doing things and getting things done for people.
There's
And
a lot of persons who don't know your history because I remember when you spoke to me about being in the Diego Martin, well, then it would be the regional corporation. I didn't know a lot of that. Maybe you could just give some of your history. So I think persons look at you as you jumped in politics as the Attorney General.
No, I started in politics at the age of 24, which is more than, so I have been in politics more than half of my life. And I was part of the PNM organization when Keith Rowley, Ken Valley, and Colum Imbert were elected for the very first time. I was elected as a local government councillor at the age of 25.
That was under PNM.
That was under the PNM. I had an absolute safe seat. I could have been in a safe seat for life if I had continued along that road. But I walked away from the PNM voluntarily after my term simply because I didn't agree with their brand of politics. I will say no more with regards to that. I love the PNM supporters who I interacted with in Diego Martin. I was part of the first Diego Martin Regional Corporation, that first council. I absolutely enjoy the people. I have no problem with PNM people or PNM supporters. There's a lot I have in common with them. Play football with them, go to school with them. They were my neighbors, my friends, my family. We have similar ideals, except that they believe that the leadership has their best interests at heart when they don't. So I walked away from the PNM and I hoped that I could convince them that they could get a better way of being represented under a different party. And that is what I have been trying to do, to explain to them that at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter who that leader is. What is important is the service that they get. So over the last 33 odd years, I have seen the life of Diego Martin get harder, get less safe, get less joyful. Because when I grew up in Diego Martin, we used to play football. I used to play football for the Maraval team called Icebergs. We would go into Bellevue and play against teams. We'd play in Carnage, we'd play in Diego Martin, we'd play in Pity Valley, and we knew everybody and we got along with everybody. Everybody felt safe. We walked the street, no problem. That kind of inter-constituency and inter-village football died a long time ago. That inter-community activity, cultural expressions died a long time ago. And that is what actually kept us safe, kept us in touch with each other, respecting each other. And so community life is important. Now, in the last couple of years, hastily, we have seen a number of community centers built in Diego Martin. We have seen in Paramin, all of a sudden you have all kind of development, because of course now the representative is feeling some kind of pressure, and so he's trying to consolidate his power by doing things. After 33 years, the football ground opposite his office is still a dilapidated ground, even though there's a massively new community center built. And now, luckily, I mean, the village council, some of the members of the village council I know, and they're very productive and they're getting things done, which I like to see. And I would like to see a lot more community activity with all these community centers being built. But of course, you don't really have it.
No, we don't. Don't get me started on community centers, because they're moving the farmers in Bagatelle. Not Bagatelle.
Yes, in Bagatelle.
In Bagatelle.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
In fact, I highlighted it because
to put up another community center.
Yeah. Well, they say it's a sporting facility.
Yeah.
Now,
But
again,
but the Merry Boys can't play with the new big Bagatelle center. It's
so
best
that
they
is
had left it the way it was. And then
that
you
is the
have the
absurdity.
community center opposite where
Yes.
FCB used to be. That is barely going on. I mean, it has like one dance class or something. First of all, the way the community, you see this building full of concrete is not a community center, if you ask me. It's a waste of time.
Mhm.
So when you started talking about community centers, I had to say, stay quiet. Stay quiet because
No,
very upset.
it's obviously somebody got a number of good contracts
That's it.
to
That's
build
all it is.
massive community centers, but there is no real thought put into it, so that
That's
you don't have.
all it is, Gavin. They thought it was thought. Don't pretend that they don't know what they're doing. They thought about it. Somebody needed to pay a financer so
Yes.
that you'd have
Oh no, well,
campaign
besides that,
financing
yes, yes.
for 2025. But that's the thought. That's the
Yeah.
thought behind it.
So there
Because
is no
as you
community
said from the start,
development.
it's not serving the politics of the PNM is
Yeah.
not to serve. That's not. And
Yeah.
dare I say, the country feels that the politics of the UNC seem to no longer be that either. Because just like you, I mean, I was never a member of the PNM. My father campaigned with PNM. I grew up in a PNM home because in Diego Martin, that's what it is. You hear PNM. But after living in Diego Martin all my life, similar to you, I cannot stand by, and this makes no sense. So I, just like you, I felt I needed to get involved. And when I looked around, the option was go as an independent. I remember talking to Amory Brown and saying, "Come now, Amory, you could go as an independent. You go win over Daryl Smith." And Amory, just like you said, that's not going to work. Tap me on my shoulder and say, "There, naive little girl." you know, but I thought Amory was a good MP. He was performing, and I thought he could win on his own. Don't worry. Over Daryl Smith, come the man. You know? But as you say, it's still, we still have that sort of tribal view, the way politics is. And I've done 2 elections now, and everybody goes, I love you, but they can't see the candidate in front of them. They see more than the candidate in front of them.
Yes.
Marsha, excuse me. Can you
Yes.
see the comments on the comments
I
board?
can't actually. Where do I look for it? Because I saw them last time, so I was interacting. I figured nobody was listening or watching
No,
because
it's
I
fully
wasn't
loaded.
seeing anything.
It's fully loaded with comments.
Really? Oh my
Yes.
goodness. How do
Don't
I
you
see it?
don't you have the comments to the
No, I was clicked on private. Oh my goodness, guys, I'm so sorry.
yes, lots and
Gavin,
lots
if
of
you
comments.
see comments.
Good afternoon, guys.
Oh, I was
Good
on the
afternoon.
wrong thing. I was on private chat. So that's why it was just empty. And I'm saying, but nobody listening to me.
No, a lot of comments there.
Oh, wow. Okay. So UNC is a bunch of racists. That will never happen with UNC. But I do think Trinidadians need to be more politically educated. And that is where I was going, Gavin, in terms of, so you spoke about we need to mature as a people. And I think social media allows that. TikTok allows it, I and I guess that's where I get hope. But there is nowhere now where I cannot walk. In fact, I'm thinking I put on a cap now or something, and persons do not recognize me. And I think the persons that are recognizing me is what gives me hope because they're young. I mean, my daughter's 14 and her friends recognize me. And I do not do personal stuff on my TikTok. My TikTok is straight politics. And I believe in political education. So I'm not here on the Ray and the Jam and the Bacchanal. I will explain. I will use the data like the 29,000 so that when you say to me, my vote doesn't count, I will say to you, well, yes, it does. Because out of 29,000, I do not even need to convince a PNM strong supporter. Because if I get 10, 15,000 of the non-voters, I could bring this thing home.
Oh, yes.
So then, and I also, so we have that. Plus you have the fact that we can put a MND, well, I will use COP, right? So that, MND, NTA, NAR, whoever, you can put 1 or 2 or 3 independent, whoever you can put good candidates in there, and they can make a difference. They can be the difference that you need. Similar to that independent senator, they can bring the balance. I remember when I first got into politics, not even in politics, but just being aware of politics and listening in as a concerned citizen. I used to always look out for the independent senator's contribution in parliament, because I felt as though they're gonna, cut through the party UNC say something, PNM say something, and then I'll listen for the independent.
Yes.
Those
those were the days when independent senators were independent.
Yes. And so I do actually really think that there is value in a third party, in having third party candidates be there. So I agree with this political education, and I guess that is why I am still here doing TikTok videos, doing this show wherever I can, hoping that we can become a mature society, because I say we have the leadership that we deserve.
But let me say one thing. The numbers still matter, and the numbers matter in Trinidad, the numbers matter in the United States of America, the numbers matter in the United Kingdom, where you still have predominantly two parties. It is why Trump is so happy that JFK Jr., with his very small percentage, joined him, because he knows that it is a very small group of people who will make the difference. At the end of the day, the people who will decide the presidency of the United States are the marginal seats. There are about 5 or 6 marginal states, and they're the ones who are going to decide the election.
Well, that's why Gary says to Kamala, you need me. Kamala standing up saying, we don't need nobody. And Gary is saying, you need me. But every Monday morning, you are seeing a tit for tat between the NTA and the UNC.
Yes, because again, those conversations need to take place in private, not in public. Because anytime you have people having those conversations in public, people have to save face. And once you're in the game of saving face, once you're in the game of saving face, nothing happens. You have to have mature conversations in private. Of course, and you're right, if private conversations don't get to happen, and you are interested in the people of Trinidad and Tobago, then you may have to just stand up and say, well, the people, you have to come clean with the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and they have to make a decision. Because it is very, very frustrating for me. I feel a sense of depression a lot of times, because I have seen so many other countries that have done so much more with so much less. And we in Trinidad and Tobago keep getting less and less and less and less and less. And we are not exploring how we could actually make Trinidad and Tobago see its full potential. We are not exploring how we can make the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago happy, safe, prosperous people. Because that is what I believe. We have 1.5 million people. We have the resources to make Trinidad and Tobago citizens. Doesn't matter your ethnicity, doesn't matter where you live geographically, it doesn't matter your religion, it doesn't matter your education. We have the potential to make every citizen safe, prosperous, and joyful. Imagine Finland getting the happiest country in the world. Finland is a cold ass place that seeing darkness for half of the year and doesn't have what we have. We have 6 to 6 sunlight. We have beaches. We have flora. We have fauna. There's $1 trillion tourism industry out there that we are not tapping into. Instead, we continue to run down Maduro for his oil. We ignore the revenue streams that are easily available, that all citizens of Trinidad and Tobago could participate in, could be independent entrepreneurs who could grow, develop, take care of their families and not need a handout. That is the kind of Trinidad and Tobago that I aspire to. That is what frustrates me, that we continue to put people in power who don't give a damn about you, the people, who are only enriching a small clique of people who are becoming multi-triple billionaires types and who don't give a damn about you, who will talk nonsense to your face and tell you, we'll raise electricity, we will raise petroleum, doesn't matter, we will increase agriculture, but nothing is being done. Just you have to pay property tax in Hudson and rain. That kind of arrogance, that uncaring behavior, and citizens continue to take it, and I don't understand how and why. I don't.
Well, I'm so happy that you say you don't understand, and I'm so happy that you are frustrated, because I mean, that's how I feel. That honestly is how I feel. And just like you, I've walked away. I'm not the type to sit and just be in a party for being in a party's sake. And if I can't stand behind the brand of politics, right? But you're speaking things like hopelessness, depression. I'm looking at someone in front of me like Gavin Nicholas, who I could really buy into his brand of politics. And you're saying that, at the end of the day, MND cannot go and just take away the tiny votes. You're going to have to join. But who are you joining with? I will say it quite frankly, I can't buy into Rudal Munilal as the next prime minister. I can't, right? I can't buy into a lot of the names of some of the persons who are there right now. Someone is saying, Kamala, Gary, and Michaela need to show unity, because at the end of the day, citizens will all suffer. But personally, I think that removing PNM cannot be the be-all and end-all. It can't be our goal to just remove PNM. I think, just like you, PNM, I mean, I think they've...
No, but it is a starting point that we must do it. I mean, joke is joke, but the PNM must be removed.
And then, like NAR and the People's Partnership, and then it breaks up, and then what? We need to remove them for more than a term. So we need to remove them. The country doesn't have the tolerance, Gavin, like they have for PNM. So a government, a non-PNM government coming in 2025 will not have the tolerance that PNM has. So the government must be ready to take the country forward. A country and that's a mammoth task. So it cannot be a marriage of convenience. And to be honest, I think that citizens are not necessarily trusting of a marriage of convenience anymore because of what happened with the People's Partnership. And then, of course, I mean, the PNM's very good at propaganda. So they're going to remind us of NAR and of People's Partnership and of this and of that. Now, our time is up. I'm going to give you the last say. Let me just very quickly. Yeah, so no third party will win. Everybody's talking basically unity, unity, unity. And of course, they're agreeing with you. You have a lot of fans here. People are loving you, by the way. And, Gavin, I would like to see you involved in active politics. I would like to see someone like you on the opposition bench in the Senate. That's the first place that I would like to see you right now.
Marsha,
if it is that we are serious about being a viable option.
There are many very good people out there. I listen to a lot of very good people who come on the television on a morning program and speak on relevant issues, who I believe, if I were the leader of the opposition, I would reach out to and bring together a very strong, dynamic team of people who are capable in finance, who are capable in national security, who are capable in trade and in expanding the economy, who are capable and interested in solving the problems that exist in Trinidad and Tobago. But at the end of the day, our political system is such that Kamala Persad-Bissessar, who is the leader of the UNC and the leader of the opposition, she has the resources, she has the party with the biggest following, and if she doesn't do what she has to do, then she will be judged by history. But unfortunately, we will all pay for it unless people recognize or she decides that she's not up to the task and she's not interested in the task. And then it will be up to the other people, all of us, to come together and offer ourselves to the people of Trinidad and Tobago with a viable plan, not as a pickup side, but with a viable plan to transform Trinidad and Tobago into the dynamic, happy country that it can be, that I dream about, that I yearn for, and that really and truly will be the only thing that will take me happily to my grave.